thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here today. You know, the good news is that when we meet here again next year, Barack Obama will not be president. But that is just about the last of the good news. Because if we don't act sensibly, Hillary Clinton will be the next president. And make no mistake, her national security policies are indistinguishable from Barack Obama's. It means 4 more years of the same thing. I have read her memoir, Hard Choices. I have read all 600 grinding, tedious pages of it. And you have to strain at a gnat to find any difference between her and Obama. So I just want to review here today what it means to have a continuation of the policies of the last 7 years and the next year before us if Hillary is elected. The fact is that Obama has allowed the world to grow more dangerous and threatening and chaotic every day. What minimal order there was in the world, established by the United States and its system of alliances starting in 1945, is threatened with collapse by our lack of involvement. Obama has taken positions of American strength, political strength, economic strength, and military strength developed over the decades and allowed them to erode. We have seen structures of deterrence that are designed to protect American interest without conflict disappear. Now, too many Americans do not see that it has been American power and our alliances that have provided the sinews of this minimalist global order. They say, but others benefit from it and don't pay their fair share. They're exactly correct. Others do benefit from it and don't pay their fair share. But there isn't anybody else who's going to do it. The United Nations is not going to provide stability. The European Union is not going to provide stability, and no other country is going to provide stability. That others benefit is a plus for us. That they don't bear their fair share of the burden is something to be corrected. But let's be clear. We're not doing it for them. We're doing it for us. We're doing it to maintain our freedoms here at home, our standard of living, and our way of life. And if the disorder that's growing in the world now and will continue to grow through Inauguration Day goes on unchecked, it may become irreparable. Now, how does Obama's breakup of the minimalist international order that we've created affect the United States, which I think is what most voters legitimately want to know? Let's just go quickly around the world. In Asia, you see in your newspapers and on television every day that China is building islands in the South China Sea and putting naval and air bases on top of those islands. They're intimidating their neighbors in Southeast Asia. They're pressing the free government of Taiwan. They have expansionist ideals. And what is our policy? Hillary Clinton can tell you in great detail because it's her policy. How do you deal with an aggressive, nearly belligerent Chinese effort to turn international waters into a Chinese lake? Her policy is negotiation with China. That's like saying our policy is prayer. Please, China, don't do anything that upsets the balance. In fact, if China succeeds in turning the South China Sea into Chinese territorial waters, this is not an abstract dispute in some remote region of the world. Every barrel of oil that goes to Japan, South Korea, and Taiwan goes through the South China states. China will have its hands around the throats of those 3 critical allies and economies. In North Korea, we've now seen them conduct their 4th nuclear test, their 3rd under Obama. Their ballistic missile program continues to the point where the U.S. commander of our forces in Korea has told us repeatedly that they're on the verge of being able to hit targets on the west coast of the United States. They're undoubtedly cooperating with the Ayatollahs in Iran on ballistic missiles and almost certainly nuclear weapons. And they're fully prepared to sell their technology or their nuclear weapons to terrorist groups that could come up with hard currency. What was Hillary's policy? For the first 4 years, the same as for the first 7. Indifference, avoidance, lack of determination. The North Koreans have pressed ahead and we have watched. Let's take Russia. This is the paradigm example of the failures of Hillary's policies. Remember the reset button? That really worked well, didn't it? We gave up our national missile defense assets in Poland and the Czech Republic. We have seen a near total collapse, in fact, of national missile defense under Obama, even from the limited program we pursued in the Bush administration, a program whose sole purpose was to protect the innocent civilian population of the United States against nuclear strikes by rogue states. And Obama has abandoned it with Hillary's full concurrence. She's negotiated a strategic arms agreement with Russia entirely in Moscow's advantage. We have watched Russia seize the Crimea by the threat and the use of military force, violating the commitment we made in 1945 that never again would military force be allowed to change international boundaries on the continent of Europe. And we now see Europe itself engulfed in turmoil, with a possible exit by Britain from the European Union, with refugees overflowing borders, endangering the countries of Western Europe, taking control of the government out of the hands of their people. We've seen financial turmoil. What is Hillary's position on the European Union? She thinks it's the greatest thing imaginable, that it's the wave of the future. In fact, Europe today is less than the sum of its parts, and that is harmful to the United States. Vladimir Putin sees this. He sees this weakness. He has used it against us in Crimea and Ukraine. And I predict almost certainly within the next 10 months, he will provoke a crisis again in perhaps one of the Baltic republics, Estonia, Latvia, or Lithuania, in order to see what the Obama, Kerry, Clinton reaction will be. If you look at Hillary's reaction to Obama's decision since she launched her campaign, she has wrapped her arms around this administration on national security policy. It's a further demonstration of how closely tied she is. And now let's turn to the Middle East, that forum of success for Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton's foreign policies. What's happened in the Middle East in the last 7 years? The fact is the region is descending into chaos. State structures are dissolving. The post-colonial, post-Ottoman Empire system of boundaries and states is disappearing. And you can just run the table right across North Africa from turmoil in Algeria, in Mali, Boko Haram in Nigeria and Cameroon, the Sudan on the verge of extinction as a state, Libya having collapsed into complete anarchy, Yemen also in a state of anarchy, the countries of Iraq and Syria having disappeared as functioning states, ISIS in control of what they call a new caliphate, the Sinai Peninsula out of the control of the government of Egypt, and a route for terrorists and weapons smugglers, right up, of course, to the nuclear weapons program in Iran, and then over to Pakistan, where ISIS and Al-Qaeda and Taliban are all making a comeback. And what is our president's response to this chaos? He wants to close the prison facility at Gitmo and release the prisoners to go back to the battlefield against us. And who supports that policy? Hillary Clinton. Worst of all, look at the way the Clinton-Obama policy has treated our ally Israel. Never in the history of the modern state of Israel has it had a more antagonistic administration than the one currently in office, until Hillary is elected, when she will take that title. We can see this in case after case. We can see also in the Middle East that Russia, not content with causing trouble in Eastern and Central Europe, has established a stronger military presence than at any point in the last 40 years since Egypt's President Anwar Sadat expelled the Soviet military advisors in the 1970s and brought Egypt into the Western orbit. We're now almost back to where we were in the depths of the Cold War in the Middle East. And that doesn't even bring us to the threat of Iran's nuclear weapons program. The Vienna deal that the administration negotiated and signed last summer is the worst diplomatic failure in the history of the United States. But make no mistake, the diplomatic strategy that John Kerry pursued was written by Hillary Clinton. This is her policy. This is the policy we will see all across the world. And yet we've seen, as I've noted before, our missile defense systems gutted right along with our national defense budget. Now, I could go on at great length, but I think the point here is clear, that Hillary Clinton is a threat to national security roughly equivalent to Barack Obama. And the greatest proof of that threat is her utter, total disdain for the protection of classified information entrusted to her as Secretary of State. If she doesn't have the wit to protect her own emails, how can we expect she's going to protect us? Now, we've just had, in the past 24 hours, a dramatic development in the ongoing criminal investigation of the email problem, in the granting of immunity to a low-ranking State Department person who set up the email server. This demonstrates that the Clinton campaign's reaction to this thing has been a lie from the beginning. They have lied about the nature of the investigation. It was never a security investigation. They knew all along. The FBI and the Justice Department are not think tanks. They don't do security reviews. They investigate and prosecute violations of the criminal law, which is exactly what we have here. The Clinton campaign spokesman said yesterday they were pleased that this individual was now cooperating with the Department of Justice. This is the kind of spin that their lapdogs in the media, who are too lazy or too uneducated to understand the reality, simply reported out again today. I tell you, the Clinton campaign will say that they're pleased when they fit her with ankle bracelets, that they're pleased when she does the perp walk. And pleased when they fit her with that orange jumpsuit. There's no doubt in my mind, and I speak both as an alumnus of the Justice Department and an alumnus of the State Department, if I had done 1/10 of what she did, I'd be in jail already. Now, for God's sakes, don't applaud that. Forget the political spin. Hillary is in deep legal jeopardy, and she should be. I believe it's inevitable that national security will be at the center of the 2016 election. It should be, because the first job of the President of the United States is to protect our national security. That's the centerpiece of his job, because if our security internationally is not protected, all of our freedoms here at home are in jeopardy. And all of the other issues, important though they are, become secondary. And Hillary has failed in this so many times. The email scandal is one example. But I think the real failure, and the one that sticks in the public's mind, the one we should fix in their minds if she is not indicted and does get the Democratic nomination, is her cowardice at Benghazi. The day of the attack, she did not talk to the Secretary of Defense once. With Americans under fire, being killed, in jeopardy all around the Middle East, she did nothing. That night, she left the State Department with Americans in jeopardy and went home. That next weekend, she didn't have the courage to appear on the Sunday talk shows, and they sent the hapless Susan Rice out to face it. This is cowardice, ladies and gentlemen. This is not what we need in a commander-in-chief. Thank you very much. Thank you.